Well, a happy Monday morning. It is great to be back on KCMO Talk Radio. Welcome in. The entire crew is back in the saddle, ready to roll. Little R&R for you there, John Anthony. Good morning.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I'm sure the year-to-date numbers are going to look horrific for the candy machine guy down here. So he's probably glad to have me back in the building.
He's probably worried something happened to you there for a second. Jeez, I knew that guy was eating too many Three Musketeers. I knew it. Oh, gosh. Well, we are full steam ahead. Of course, the kids are starting school in many places around the metro next week. My goodness, summer unofficially coming to an end in the Kansas City area. But that doesn't mean there's not plenty of stuff going on. I mean, geez, step away and Travis Kelce's slugging guys in the end zone at camp in the last couple of days. What's that all about? But I like Andy Reid's line, if you didn't see it. Andy's like, hey, he's an old guy. He's still got some juice to him. There you go. That's a good job by Andy Reid. And on top of that, you also have a situation where it just seems like the storms won't end. I mean, I leave, storms are blowing through town. I come back, storms are blowing through town again last night. Had some strong winds. Not seeing a lot on the outage front, thank goodness. We've dealt with enough of that the last couple of weeks. But there's been no shortage, it seems like, of storms blowing through the metro across Kansas City over the last couple of weeks. And, I'll take the rain. I'll leave it at that. Meantime, I know this was last week, but there was a lot written about it over the last few days. And that is the age of the members in Congress. And this comes in the wake of, I'm sure you saw it by now. If you've been on vacation, maybe you haven't. But you've probably seen the clip or at least heard the clip from late last week when Mitch McConnell is giving a speech and literally just goes into a blank stare. I mean, it was horrific to watch, John. It was scary.
Yeah, it was. It was sort of, I expected like Sopranos to hear Don't Stop Believin' playing for so long. It's like 20 seconds. It had that, like, is that it? Is that it?
I thought something out of my TV. I'm like, wait, hello? I start banging on the TV. Oh, no, that's just Mitch. He's frozen in time or something like that. So it's brought up in the last few days, the conversation we've had on this show many times before about the age of our leaders in Congress and the government at large. I mean, we have people in Congress who, if they showed up to apply to be a Walmart greeter, you would say, I'm not sure if they're all there. I don't know if I want them sitting at the front of the store. And I'm not knocking anyone who's a Walmart greeter. It's a good way to pass the time. I'm just saying, do you want those individuals running your government, running the country?
I think even Village Inn's got a cutoff for the senior discount, right?
I got to imagine. How could you not? How could you not, right? I mean, geez, you look at these guys, and they're all either in their 80s or they're pushing 80. And I know that we want to sit here and believe that ageism is not a thing, but how many individuals are getting hired at 80 years old to do certain jobs? Never mind jobs that end up, running the government, and we're not talking about a third world government here. We're talking about the United States government. So this article over the weekend, Washington Post, the average age of Congress is rising, and that's unlikely to change anytime soon. Wow, you don't say. Thanks so much.
Talk about a bombshell.
Yeah, it's not getting better. It's not improving, and anyone that's been focused on this and is paying attention knows that. The current class of lawmakers is one of the oldest in history, with an overall median age of 59. The median age of a U.S. senator right now is 65, the highest on record. In the House, the median age has hovered between 57 and 58 years old for the past decade, higher than in any other year before that period of time. The numbers have steadily ticked up since the 2000s, even as the country elects younger members. The freshman class sworn in this year was the youngest in recent history, with 18 new lawmakers under 40 elected to both chambers. So what does that tell you? The old guys, or gals, Dianne Feinstein, they're hanging around too long. Even though there are some new, young, fresh faces entering Congress, the old heads are staying around too long. And that's where you bring in the conversation of, is it term limits? Is it having an age restriction? I still don't understand what the big deal is about having an age restriction. I know a lot of you guys disagree with me on this, and we've talked about it before on this show. But we sit here and we say, hey, you can't be a president until you're 35 years old. And no one thinks twice. But then if I say, hey, you got to be under 75, well, some 75-year-olds.
I know some, right? We're playing the minority number there, though. It's not a majority of people 80 who are out there driving and
feeling
that
great.
kind of stuff, target shooting.
Yeah. No, that's not most 80-year-olds.
Merle down there at the Town Square does. Yeah, we get that. Everybody knows a Merle.
Exactly, they do. But we sit there and we talk about the older age demographic and we say, well, everyone ages differently. Some people are different at 75 than others. Okay, well, some people are different at 35 than others. We never look at the front end of the age demographic and say, well, some people are more mature at 35 than others. Some people, serve the country, settled down. They've got a bunch of kids by 35, and some are still being frat bros at 35, right? I mean, that's true. And
Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah, Beto. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of those people out there. But only when it comes to an elderly person do we say, well, some people age differently. Yes, and some people mature faster, but we don't argue that a president should be allowed to be 30. We still say it's 35. So why the heck don't we start doing this with Congress? And then you naturally get term limits, by the way. Someone could enter at 55, but if they got to be done by 75 or 80, then they've only got 20, 25 years to be in Congress. I mean, you don't necessarily need to have term limits if you have age limits. Now, I guess you could be like Joe Biden, and you could enter the Senate in your 30s, and you could hang around your entire career and have your son be your bag man and your, everything else, and you could live a great 40-year career off the government teat. I suppose that's possible, but for the most part, you're going to have natural term limits. And when you hear the Mitch McConnell thing, once again, in case you missed it from last week, my goodness, it's scary.
Bipartisan cooperation and a string of
Mitch, you there? Hey, Mitch.
Are you good?
Hello, Mitch.
Okay, Mitch.
Mitch, you all right there, brother?
Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your office?
No?
Do you want to say anything else to the press?
All right, and that was John Thune trying to bail him out there, saying, you want to say anything else to the press? You all right there, Mitch? And then he kind of meanders off at 81 years old. McConnell, the fourth oldest senator and one of more than 24 members who come from the silent generation born between the late 20s and the end of World War II. This can't continue. It just can't. At some point, reasonable people, and I know there's not many of them left, have got to stand up and say, we're not going to continue with this. We look like a joke on the world stage. And that applies to all of them across the political spectrum. I don't care. I think Trump's too damn old. And I like him. And I think he'd be a great president. And I voted for him twice. But I'm done with the 80-year-old guys and gals in Congress running the country. I do not care. I don't want to see it anymore. 913-408-7710. As we get it rolling on a Monday morning, it's good to be back. I do have to also give you an updated airport review. I soured a little bit on it after getting back to the airport here over the weekend. We'll dive into that and much more on a Monday morning. Pete Mundo on KCMO. See, the Babylon Bee had a great article over the weekend. They had some fun with this. And obviously, whether it's Mitch McConnell, some people, I don't want to say assuming, but the perception was that he suffered some kind of stroke when he was speaking late last week at the podium and just stopped talking for about 20 seconds and had to be shuffled away. Whether it's Joe Biden tripping upstairs, not knowing where to walk, falling over himself, not being able to speak, the list goes on and on, or anybody else for that matter who happens to be running the country at way too old an age, you feel for them. You do feel for them, but you got to have fun with it too, because if not, I'm just going to sit here and cry all day about the geriatrics running the country, John.
Yeah, wasn't the Dianne Feinstein, somebody had to whisper to her to vote aye?
That's right, yes.
That was just recently, right?
That wasn't
just kicked up from another time.
No.
That was right here within Mitch's deal, too.
Yes, she's 90 years old as well.
Yeah, so both of those are within, 10 days at least, something like that?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. She, that was Thursday. She appeared confused when called on to cast a vote in a committee hearing and had to be nudged by committee chair Patty Murray, Democrat from Washington, to say aye. I mean, that was a day after Mitch McConnell's situation. So Babylon Bee's headline here from Saturday, family torn between placing grandpa in hospice and having him run for Senate. I mean, that's pretty good. It says here, a local family was faced with a difficult decision this week regarding whether to place their beloved grandpa in hospice care or have him announce a campaign for a U.S. Senate seat. The grandfather and potential candidate, Philip Gabbert, is 98 years old and suffers from advanced dementia. Bryce Gabbert said, "We could really go either way on this. He's in really rough shape and has very little quality of life. Common sense says he belongs in hospice. But with the way things are in Washington these days, he could really become a major power player. He can't really speak or think clearly anymore, but who are we to not give him the opportunity to run the country?" I mean, it's spot on. At publishing time, writes the Babylon Bee, the Gabbert family was still struggling with the decision, torn between doing what's best for Grandpa or doing what would be more likely to set up the family for several generations worth of wealth built upon illegal bribes, insider stock trading, and campaign kickbacks. Oh, gosh. Steve is in Johnson County. Hi, Steve. Good morning.
Hey, Doc. How's it going?
All right.
Morning,
Happy Monday.
All right. You know what's scarier, is when you look at the young people now that are trying to get in the government and see how they hate the very Constitution that they're sworn to uphold. It's scary. Like ALC, different ones. I can't think of off the top of my head, but some of the older ones, it's bad to see them there, but it's even worse to think about the ones that were coming behind them to replace them that don't want to change the Constitution, that change this and change that for the worst of the people. So it's like a catch-22. You called them.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here, I think you're not giving enough credit. I mean, think about some of the younger folks. J.D. Vance out of Ohio, new U.S. Senator. He's 38 years old. Josh Hawley's one of the youngest U.S. Senators in his early 40s right here in Missouri. I mean, I think that the Republican Party's job would be to find young, solid leaders that they could groom into great politicians. So I know what you're saying, Stephen. The younger generation's more likely to lean the other way. But you know what? The party's got to figure out where are our young leaders, and I think they're out there. You just got to find them.
I agree. I mean, I would. I've even been asked to run for mayor at one time, but I know that the urban core wouldn't vote for me because I'm a conservative.
Yeah.
So
well.
So,
Stephen, I don't want to burst your bubble here, but I met you at a Politics in a Pint before. I mean, I don't know if I'd consider you on the spring chicken side of things either.
I just celebrated the 19th year of my 35th birthday.
God bless you, my friend. Have a great day.
Likewise.
Well, he's still in the demo, 25-54 then, right? He still makes the cut.
Yeah.
If I did my math right. There you go. But Stephen in Johnson County, J.D. Vance, I mean, two sides of the same coin there. But I love Stephen. However, I'm not going to not push for younger lawmakers in D.C. because the older ones might skew more in my preferred direction. That's where it's on leadership to say it's our job to find young people who are active, who are strong, traditional, conservative Americans who want to give back and want to help serve their country, whether it's in the Senate, the House, whatever it might be. I'm not going to give the cop-out of saying, well, the older folks are more likely to agree with me, so let's leave them around for a little bit, John.
Yeah, I'm with you, and we don't need to hear about Senator but.
Yeah.
Right. I'm interested in Vivek Ramaswamy. He's not got a position per se, but we're talking about younger people coming through the ranks. What's North Carolina? Tim Scott?
Yeah, South Carolina's Tim Scott,
South
younger
Carolina.
guy.
There you go. Guys like that, I'm more interested in hearing.
Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy is under 40. Tim Scott, I want to say, is in his 50s, 57. But gosh, he's a young man in the U.S. Senate. Right? That's a young
man. Just because
man.
you're on the PGA senior circuit doesn't mean.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
I was looking at Roger Marshall had a photo up on his Instagram yesterday. Him and his wife celebrated their 40th anniversary. And I thought, gosh, Roger's old enough to be married 40 years? And then I pulled it up. He's 62 years old, so, that makes sense. And I thought to myself, geez, I think it's that Roger Marshall looks so much younger than his colleagues in the U.S. Senate. I perceive him to be younger than he really is. Now, he looks good for his age, too. I'm not taking anything away from the guy. He's a great-looking 62. However, I think a lot of it, too, is kind of who you stand next to, right? If you're 5'8" and you stand next to a bunch of people who are 5'5", you look like a big guy. You're not. Similar thing with Roger Marshall. When he's standing next to Mitch McConnell on most days, when I see him, he looks like he's 48.
I appreciate his young man's enthusiasm, though. I can relate to that. Right?
Well, he certainly has a lot of energy. Young man enthusiasm, that's for darn sure. Coming up on KCMO, I will tweak my KCI, MCI airport review just a hair. Plus, we do know who's going to be on the debate stage, at least as of now, for the first GOP debate. We'll tell you that and much more all coming up next. I need to revise just a hair. I've got to revise my A review for the new airport. Just a little bit. And let me explain why. By the way, it is great to be back on a Monday morning here on KCMO Talk Radio. I've been in the airport a lot, on and off, the last couple of weeks, and we came back to town this past Saturday. And I'll tell you what, this is something I had yet to experience at the new airport, but it is something that I've heard complaints from many of you about that does need to be tweaked, or I should say improved, and that is the wait at baggage claim. Now, some of you have called in when we've previously talked about the airport. I've seen this on social media. I've seen people write about it in some places, letters to the editor at the Kansas City Star and things like that. But when you got two little kids, when you have a 4 and a 2-year-old, and you're waiting up to a half hour for baggage, that half hour feels like an hour and a half, and that's me being generous. Now, at the old spot, at the old dump, and I don't want the old dump back. I advocated for the new airport since day one for many reasons we've addressed on this show. But at the old spot, I will say that luggage, once it got off that plane, it was on that carousel. We were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Now, I know the luggage has to go a lot further, just in terms of how far it needs to go physically to get from wherever you're at in the new gate at the new airport to the baggage claim. But I got to believe that there is some staffing issues there, because there's no reason anybody should get off a plane and then wait a half hour to see the luggage. And by the way, there's 8 baggage claims at the new airport, and there were a lot of people waiting at all of them. So it didn't seem like it was just my flight. It didn't seem like it was our carrier. I think it's something based on what I've experienced with staffing issues at the airport itself, John. That's my takeaway there.
They want to extend a streetcar line from the plane to the baggage carousel, so you might be in favor of that then, right?
Is that what they want to do? Oh, my God.
This isn't like big box store theory where they got 8 carousels but only one working, right?
Well, no.
Shut down the register. They're all supposed to be turning and churning, right?
Correct. They were all in use, it seemed like, to one degree or another.
Gotcha.
I just got to imagine they don't have enough people getting the bags off the planes.
Yeah.
Because I know they're short-staffed at some of the shops at the airport. I've heard many of you complain about that. But when you're sitting there with the 4-year-old and a 2-year-old waiting for the bags, it's like one of us was going to go get the car, and then I'm like, it's kind of one of those things where you have the conversation with yourself. All right, one of us will get the car. I'll wait for the bags. But then by the time you decide on it, the thing actually starts showing up with luggage. So you're like, well, let's wait. But then you wait and you wait. And, of course, like our bags were some of the last to come off the airplane for some reason, so we paid the price with that with the kids.
Now, I haven't been on the new floor plan. I was on the outside looking in, picking up. Mm-hmm. Are you isolated down there? Like the old one, you could kind of maybe wander. Let's go down here to the restroom and maybe get a Coke down here. Yeah, I see escalators coming down,
Correct.
And I just see people. I don't see any amenities or anything. You're just kind of there unless you go back up.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is a correct assumption.
So even with kids in, you don't get to kind of, let's wander down here and look at the floor.
No, there's none of that. Nothing. You're stuck in a dungeon. Is really what you're stuck in. But
and people outside going, come on,
I know.
2 minutes, hurry.
Let's go. But I will say, having two little kids, once the luggage starts showing up, I mean, they've got plenty of entertainment. They love looking at look at that. Pink luggage, yellow luggage, green luggage, blue luggage. So that was fine. I didn't mind waiting a little bit once the luggage started showing up. But, geez, you're trying to corral a 4 and a 2-year-old, waiting a half hour for the luggage to show up. So got to get on that, KCI. But outside of that, still love the new airport. It has been a tremendous benefit, I believe, for Kansas City at large. And I bumped into a listener, a couple of weeks ago when I was there, and he works at the airport. And he said, Pete, I was so against the airport. I hated this idea. I was dead set against you. But he's been working there at, I think it's like Johnson and Murphy up at the airport. And he said, honestly, it has been huge in terms of the amount of foot traffic they've seen. The business travel is back. And he's very happy with it. So it's anecdotal. I had it as an A. I'm going to bump it down to an A minus, at least until next time when hopefully the baggage claim is moving a little faster. Just a little faster. Meantime, we know who's in and who's out, at least as the calendar flips to August tomorrow for the first Republican presidential debate of the 2024 cycle. That's going to be taking place August 23rd in Milwaukee. And there are 7 candidates who, as of right now, have qualified. Now, others can still try to qualify in time. But here's what you got to do to qualify for the debate August 23rd. You have to have at least 1% polling in 3 high-quality national polls or a mix of national and early state polls between July 1 and August 21. You have to have a minimum of 40,000 donors with 220 or more states. So once again, a minimum of 40,000 donors with 200 donors in 20 or more states. So who's in? Right now, you've got Trump is in, DeSantis is in, Tim Scott, South Carolina Senator, he's in. Trump's former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, she made the cut. Vivek Ramaswamy is in. Chris Christie, the former New Jersey governor. I'm surprised, to be honest, that he's gotten 200 people in 20 different states, but apparently he has. He told CNN this month he surpassed 40,000 unique donors in 35 days. Okay? And then this one was a wild card. Think about this. Of all the people who are running for president, Doug Burgum. Doug Burgum is now in his second term as North Dakota's governor. He's a wealthy former software entrepreneur. But here's how he's made the cut. Now, this is debatable in terms of whether or not you're violating campaign finance law here. But here's what he's done, this guy, Doug Burgum. He announced a program this month to give away $20 gift cards for a $1 donation. So you get $19 when you donate $1 to this guy. So he's buying donors to make the debate stage. Now, I'll give him this much. It's clever. He's calling these things Biden relief cards. And he's giving you a $20 gift card. So if you want to make $19 today, that's how you do it. Doug Burgum is giving away $20 gift cards to as many as 50,000 people in exchange for a $1 donation. How the heck? I'm not a campaign finance law expert, but can somebody tell me how that's legal? How that makes any sense? Where somebody who's running for office can basically pay you for a donation? I mean, that's what's happening here. So he's passed the donor threshold. Now, who is not qualified? That's an interesting list as well. Mike Pence has not qualified. Jeez. Okay, no Mike Pence right now. He's met the polling threshold, but has yet to amass a sufficient number of donors. Asa Hutchinson has not made the cut. Good riddance. The former Arkansas governor. Francis Suarez, the Miami mayor, has not made the cut. Larry Elder, talk radio host, has not made the cut. Will Hurd, former Texas congressman, who's also wasting everyone's time, including his own, has not made the cut. And Perry Johnson, wealthy but unknown businessman, largely unknown businessman from Michigan, has also not made the cut. But they're all hoping to make the cut. They still have some time. But that's where we're at right now. And I'd be fine, by the way, if we just get the people who are on there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 7. I don't want a stage with 22 guys and gals on. I just don't. I want 7, 8, 9, 10, and then call it a day. And let's get some adults to actually debate things, and hopefully Trump will show up.
Well, and take it from me, you get that many people, and people think they're a comedian.
Yeah, so. Exactly right. Oh, there's my moment. Here's my chance.
It turns like a radio staff meeting.
Yeah.
Devolves into one-liners.
You say that like you speak from experience there, John. 913-408-7710 as we approach 6:45 on a Monday on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up, the now infamous restaurant involving the Jackson Mahomes altercation has closed for now. We'll tell you the details coming up next. Well, you don't say. Aspen's Restaurants in Overland Park announcing over the weekend on its Facebook page that they have closed until further notice. Now, Aspen's Restaurant and Lounge, so it's not just a restaurant, it's a lounge. Aspen's Restaurant and Lounge is where the store owner or the restaurant owner was in a now viral video allegedly assaulted by Jackson Mahomes, who she has now pressed charges against and obviously is going through the legal system. And it's funny, I was in Manhattan, New York for the first time in 5.5 years last week, visiting with some buddies.
The more things change, the more they stay the same, right?
Well, exactly right. And what did they want to know about Kansas City more than anything else? Jackson Mahomes. Not Patrick.
Wow.
Not the Chiefs.
Really?
Hey, what's this? I mean, they hate him. They all can't stand him. But it's hysterical. They don't want to know about Patrick. They don't want to know about, can the Chiefs win the Super Bowl? They want to know about how big of a tool Jackson Mahomes is. I mean, I'm sitting in a bar in Midtown Manhattan talking about Jackson Mahomes. I'm like, come on, guys. But it's like, oh, we see him on TMZ all the time. We should go to that restaurant.
TMZ.
You know? I mean, that's what they see. So, made me want to pull my hair out, whatever's left of it. But anyway.
Hanging out with the Post reader or something.
Yeah. That is true, John. Says a lot about my friends as well. Jackson Mahomes, of course, earlier this year, charged with 3 counts of aggravated sexual battery. He faces those charges and another battery charge after the incidents at Aspen's Restaurant in Overland Park back in February. He's due back in court on August 31st. So, I don't live down in that part of town where I would be going to Aspen's Restaurant. When you got 2 little kids and you're going out to eat, you try to stay within a couple-mile radius just in case all hell breaks loose back at the house. So not going too far. Don't want to leave the babysitters hanging. So I have not been to Aspen's Restaurant. Not been down that way. But from people I've spoken to in the know, what I've basically been told is that nobody wants to go there. Not necessarily just because of the drama that the place has been involved with over the last few months. A lot of people like me and like what I've told you on this show are not necessarily fans of Jackson Mahomes, but they know enough and they can read between the lines a little bit here in realizing I don't think this is all that it's hyped up to be. I think there might be something else going on here where as much as, we don't think Jackson Mahomes is a great representation of Kansas City, he's not, but I'm willing to defend a guy when I get the sense and when I start to hear things that would suggest there's more than meets the eye, and that's what this is.
Yeah, the location itself has been popular through the years, and it had hot spots. It was a Llewellyn's at one time. They're still open in Lee Summit doing bang-up business, but it tends to change every few years. I don't know why. It just, Mark and I were kind of wondering about that.
Have you been there, Mark? Have you been down that way? 151st in Overland Park?
Not since it's been Aspens.
Yeah,
Okay.
me neither.
Yeah.
So it's 151st and Metcalf.
But it's an old church, so the layout's not going to change a lot. It's kind of unique in its layout, so I don't know if that contributes one way or the other. Like I say, it's been hot, been popular at times, but it ebbs and flows.
Well, here's the other thing, too. I've heard a lot of things about the financials of the business and, how well it's doing or how not well it's doing. The restaurant industry in general is a crappy industry. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make an enormous amount of money in it. You can. But there's a lot of people who go into the restaurant business because they're like, yeah, I like burgers or I like French cuisine. And then when you realize how difficult a business it is, and by the way, no days off, weekends, holidays, not a 9 to 5, high drama, high turnover. It's just a difficult business. It doesn't mean it can't be a great one, but it's a difficult business. So to your point, John, it's possible that, yes, there might be some backlash over the Jackson Mahomes thing and people just want to stay away and there's way too many comparable restaurants to bother going there. But it could be that the business wasn't exactly in a great place anyway before any of this, and that these two things may not have anything to do with each other. The Jackson Mahomes thing happened, and it's working through the legal process, but it's possible the business is struggling anyway. And here's the thing. People don't decide to go out to eat to places where Jackson Mahomes allegedly assaulted somebody. Hey, where do you want to go tonight, honey? Well, we haven't been to that place where Mahomes, allegedly assaulted the restaurant owner yet, have we? No, let's go check it out. No one does that. No one picks where they're going to eat based off of nonsense like that, right? So the attention is not even good attention. The free publicity is not even in that industry good publicity. No one's talking about how well they cook their seasoned fries. No one's talking about the starters, the appetizers coming out of Aspens. It's like, hey, did you see the video of Jackson Mahomes down there with the owner? Like that's really not what you want to be going for there on that front. So 913-408-7710. That's also the text line here on KCMO Talk Radio. I've not been there, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to go there anytime soon because Aspens Restaurant and Lounge announcing over the weekend on social media it has closed indefinitely until further notice is what they're saying. And you know what? Good riddance. Good riddance to everybody involved with that situation, as far as I'm concerned. So if you're somebody who lives anywhere in the Kansas City metro and, you've got concerns because you've invested in your neighborhood, you invested in your city, in your town, and then suddenly city leaders decide, we're going to change the entire makeup of certain parts of the town because, well, we want to, and in the name of air quotes equity, you're a racist, you're against poor people. I mean, those are the allegations the Kansas City Star is making in their headline piece from yesterday. Is Johnson County affordable housing war about protecting cities or keeping people out? That's the headline from the Kansas City Star yesterday, and it comes 2 days before tomorrow's elections on the Kansas side of the state line, where there are going to be many city council races and school board races and things of that nature. And I'll note this now at 8:06 on a Monday. If you are running for any of these council races or school board races tomorrow, we'll let you call in on Election Day. Give your pitch for a couple of minutes if you'd like. I know it's obviously an election day where not a lot of people are even realizing it's election day in Kansas, but it is. And we won't go wall to wall with it tomorrow, but we'll weave it in and out of the show tomorrow morning. So think about that. If you're running or someone you know is, tomorrow you can give your pitch here for a couple of minutes on KCMO. But this article in the Star focuses on Prairie Village in particular. And Prairie Village, if you've driven through there at any point in the last several months to a year, You probably have seen the little signs in people's yards that say stop rezoning. And that is a pushback against the city council that has been rezoning certain parts of the city to allow for multifamily, apartment living, things like that. And, you know, a lot of people have chose to live in Prairie Village, yes, because of the community and because of the schools, but also because it's a community that is all single-family homes. And for the most part, you know what you're getting, right? Or at least you thought you knew what you were getting when you moved into Prairie Village. Now, this is happening in communities all over Kansas City, all over the region. But Prairie Village has been the hub of this because of the organized effort to push back on a city council that is simply trying to rezone in the name of, air quotes, I use again, affordable housing and housing equity. And they put together a very good movement against it. It's been coordinated. They've had the yard signs, and, they've done a good job on this. So naturally, the Kansas City Star is trying to push back. And I thought it was interesting. There were many people quoted in this piece. And this organization that's been formed to basically push back on stop rezoning Prairie Village is called Prairie Village for All. Aren't they so cute with the names? Prairie Village for All. Well, I wasn't aware that the stop rezoning Prairie Village meant that they were against anybody. If anything, wouldn't you be against developers, many from out of town, who are just trying to make a quick buck, dump an apartment complex somewhere and get out of Dodge? I mean, I didn't know anyone was against individuals per se. Now, do I think that there's an element of massive hypocrisy from some people in Prairie Village? I do. I think that there are a lot of people with their woke yard signs in Prairie Village. In this house, we believe love is love, no humans illegal, all that stuff. Yet they will actively work to make sure that people in their neck of the woods do not have housing in their backyard. I think those people are hypocrites. I do. However, if you're somebody who is consistent in your thinking, where you say, first off, yes, humans can be illegal to a country, doesn't mean you're against immigration or immigrants. I just think there should be a process, right, to come into this country. If you believe that, and then you also happen to believe that if you live in Prairie Village or you live anywhere else for that matter, and you invest in a community because of what that community currently is, and then you have a city council that decides we're going to completely change the layout of the county or the city in this case because, well, we want to. At least you're consistent, right? But there is a segment of the population that is very much unwilling to change their backyard while at the same time putting up their yard signs that says, in this house, we believe no humans illegal, but not in my house, not in my backyard. It's like, hey, if you're going to put that sign up, then you should be the ones who have the front door open. So don't get me wrong. I'm well aware of that hypocrisy. But anyway, back to this group, Prairie Village for All. It's led by Lauren Martin. Now, Lauren Martin, interestingly enough, was at one point a paid political consultant for the mayor of Prairie Village, Eric Mickelson. Now, that's not noted, of course, in the article because why would the Kansas City Star be transparent when they're trying to push an agenda? They're not interested in any of that, but I think that you, as a smart audience, should know that. Anyway, Lauren Martin, who is helping lead this group, Prairie Village for All, which is opposed to the Stop Rezoning PV movement, said that the group formed after, quote, watching angry person after angry person stand up in front of city council and start screaming about housing. Some of it was incredibly racist and horrifying. So the allegation now is that if you have a problem with a Prairie Village City Council willy-nilly deciding we're going to change the entire makeup of a town that, by the way, is pretty darn dense and doesn't have any room to grow per se, that means that you are incredibly racist. According to Lauren Martin, who once again, I want to remind you, at one point paid political consultant of the mayor of Prairie Village. So you see what this is all about, right? And it's not a coincidence that the Star puts out this headline piece 2 days before an election in which Prairie Village could be revamping its city council. And there has also been a movement to recall the mayor, Eric Mickelson, in Prairie Village. And here's what the mayor said in a statement to the Star about this whole piece and this whole housing dilemma that's playing out. And yes, it's in Prairie Village, but it's also in other places around the metro. Mayor Mickelson said in a statement to the Star, "What can we do to maintain attainable housing for middle-income working families who historically have made our community their home? The teachers and the firefighters, the nurses and the police officers, what options can we offer while enhancing all the things we love about Prairie Village, like excellent and safe neighborhoods, schools, parks, and streets?" Well, I'm not quite sure why that's his job. I mean, yes, first off, nurses, I know plenty of nurses who do live in Prairie Village, by the way. But you would like everybody to be able to access Prairie Village. There's a lot of people that can't. Is it the government's job to make sure that they can? And if the government's involved in making sure that they can, then the government has to then pick winners and losers. And do you want your local government picking winners and losers? That's basically what the mayor is saying there in that statement. It is our job to help pick winners and losers instead of just making your community as attractive as you can to as many people as you can and then allowing the chips to fall where they may. This is kind of like this, utopian view of the world that I believe many people on the left seem to have, where somehow everybody has to have access to fill in the blank. Why can't we all have access to Mission Hills? Why don't they go after them? 99% of the Kansas City region doesn't have access to it. Should we? I don't know. I don't lose any sleep over it. I'm very happy with where I live. I'm sure many of you are as well. So it's a mindset that's permeating so many of these local municipalities and their government leaders, and the Kansas City Star is more than happy to do their bidding. Coming up, we are going to be joined in studio by Lori Sharp. She is running for City Council in Prairie Village, but more importantly, she has been at the forefront of the Stop Rezoning PV efforts, and she will join us coming up next. Pete Mundo, 8:15 on a Monday. It's great to be here on KCMO. There's just so much on this issue that applies to not just Prairie Village, but also many parts of Johnson County and the metro at large, because housing has gotten out of control. I mean, COVID completely screwed up the housing market for so many reasons. It wasn't just COVID, but it was many things involved with and around COVID. And then, of course, millennials finally wanting to settle down and have a family and do all those things that happen to coincide with COVID in many cases. And that's how you end up with housing prices in and around Johnson County, but other parts of the metro as well, skyrocketing the last 3 years. And Prairie Village has been ground zero with the Stop Rezoning efforts that have, you've seen the signs if you drive through town. It's been bad. And they've actually had a coordinated effort to fight back against it. So now, 2 days before an election on Tuesday, the Star's headline piece yesterday read as follows: Is Johnson County affordable housing war about protecting cities or keeping people out? And the allegations from the Kansas City Star, as you would imagine, is a very simple one. If you are not a fan of massive levels of multifamily housing and condos in your backyard, well, by golly, you are anti-poor and you're a racist. I mean, that's it. It's really that simple. And as one of you note on the text line, which is a great text, for the Kansas City Star, you got to understand, Pete, it is racist to simply be successful because success presupposes having certain values the Kansas City Star loathes. Ding, 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 ding. We've got a winner. That's well said. Woo! Very well done. 913-408-7710. But this issue has been a problem in other parts of the region. And one of the other things that was discussed here in the KC Star article was the fact that Habitat for Humanity has a project that's going on in Olathe. Habitat's partnering with Pathway Community Church, which owns the land, to build 14 single-family homes near 159th and Black Bob. Jessica's in Olathe on that. Hey, Jessica, good morning. You're on KCMO.
Good morning, Pete. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely, Jessica. So what's the issue down there, and what is not being covered like it should be in terms of that project?
Well, we found out about this project via a text message from some neighbors because it had already been passed by the Johnson County Commission without talking with anybody in the surrounding neighborhood. It's about 100 yards from us, and it's a 14-house affordable housing project that's being run by Habitat for Humanity. And basically, they're kind of pushing it because the Pathway Church, which is already on that property, sold them the property for a very low price. I think it was $250,000 for 8 acres. And what's not thought through, though, is there's a single point of entry and exit for these 14 homes. So I don't know how many drivers that would be, but they're all funneling into right at 159th and Black Bob, which is already a very high traffic area. And so it's very much so that they haven't really thought through the process. They're just kind of pushing it because they want the property to have affordable housing. And I think it still has to pass through Olathe City Council. But I'm afraid that Olathe City Council is just going to get pressured into passing it because Johnson County has already passed it without talking to any of the neighbors or anybody that's involved with, being impacted by the actual development.
So, I think you're right. The Olathe City Council is pretty feckless in my experience in dealing with them, so that would not surprise me. I think you're right about that. Now, the neighborhood you're in, because I'm looking at the map here that was in the article, and you're right, there's one entry point in and out off of Black Bob. I assume you're in the neighborhood on the west side of Black Bob there where there's a bunch of homes as you look at the map.
We're on the east side, actually, about 100 yards from where that entry point would be.
Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about there. Okay, so then, Jessica, are you and your neighbors going to be pushing the Olathe City Council and appearing to try to push back on it, or what are you guys doing, if anything? You are?
Absolutely, yes. We've already been at some of the meetings that Pathway has held on their property with Habitat for Humanity. And I do want to say, Pete, none of us are against what Habitat for Humanity stands for. We think that what they do to allow people to get affordable housing, we're not against that. What we're against is pushing it to be in areas that, A, there's no sidewalks, bus stops, anything that would, allow these affordable housings to go up in a successful way. It's basically like they're pushing it because the land's available. And if you look in the records, Olathe has the highest number of affordable housing already in the Johnson County area. There's tons of other areas that could be used for this type of development, like DeSoto. There's so many open land areas that would be great for this. But they're pushing it because this land was brought to them. So it's kind of like an agenda.
There's no doubt about it. It's an agenda. Jessica, thank you for hanging on. That is great information. We appreciate you checking in with us this morning. And I will add this as well to what Jessica just said. Some of you may recall I spent many years working with the Habitat Restore folks, which is a branch of Habitat for Humanity. They take your used items and used goods and they sell them, and then that money gets used to fund Habitat for Humanity. Great organization, great cause. And I know a lot of the people who are involved with the project down at 159th and Black Bob. I don't get it. If you're truly trying to say, hey, we want to build homes for people in parts of Kansas City and allow them to get single-family ownership when they normally could not do it. Is 159th and Black Bob really the place that makes the most amount of sense? Okay, fine, the land's available. because of this Pathway Church. All right, that's great. But is that truly what's in the best interest of potential homeowners who, because of who Habitat for Humanity appeals to, they may not have close to Jessica's point? Sidewalks, bus stops, things that a lot of folks need who are going to be able to live in Habitat homes, are they going to have that readily available to them? I don't think they are. I don't. And I think that she brings up some very good points here, and I didn't know that, if she's right there, Olathe having the highest amount of affordable housing in Johnson County as is right now. Why not look at some of the other communities? There are so many different opportunities for Habitat, and I think they're doing incredible work, but I wouldn't think that 159th and Black Bob is the spot that makes the most amount of sense for them. 913-408-7710. That's the text line here on KCMO. Now, hold on. I knew this was going to come. It was only a matter of time. Pete, it's folks like Jessica. They don't want to help poor people in their neighborhood. Stop. You don't know anything about Jessica. You don't know anything about her community involvement. You don't know anything about her charitable givings. You don't know anything about any of that about her. You don't. Right? But because she has some questions about whether or not it makes sense to put affordable housing in her backyard within 100 yards, don't like the poor peeps. See, that's how it always goes, John. It just gets emotional right out of the gates.
Well, if you start thinking, it weighs you down when you want to charge up the moral high ground and plant your flag and cast aspersions downhill.
And that, and I don't have this information on my fingertips, but it always seems like whether it's county commissioners, mayors, city councils, they usually don't put these things in their own backyards, do they? Find me a mayor or a city council member or a county commissioner who votes for one of these in their own backyards. And I will stand corrected if you find one, but something tells me you're not.
And they don't have the big public announcement about the meetings coming to voice your opinion ahead of time, right?
You got to find them out yourself.
When we renew our license, we have this thing that runs for, 10, 30 days? I don't know, something. Hey, we're renewing our license, blah, blah, blah. Why isn't that the same for some kind of a government proclamation?
It should
72
be.
hours, we're going to vote on this, voice your opinion.
Yeah. Instead, Jessica's finding out about it through her neighbors because somebody stumbled upon somebody who stumbled upon somebody who said, hey, did you hear what they're doing over there across the street? Eesh. Remember, tomorrow your election, Olathe got city council elections as well. And, these elections, it's going to be low turnout, but just know that these people vote on things that have enormous impacts in your lives. 8:50, happy Monday. Alma just said good evening because when you look outside, it's pitch black and it's been storming and the thunder has been rumbling and the whole thing. But it is a Monday morning, just getting the week started here on KCMO. Gosh, been a busy couple of weeks on the weather front, but we're getting through it. Wouldn't want to be flying into the airport last night when the 80-mile-an-hour winds were blowing through town. Jeez, John.
Sports betting are using Evergy outages as betting now. Board's all lit up,
The over-unders on Evergy outages.
Yeah. We got up to 80 thou, I think, just through last night, and those gust winds at 70 miles an hour, another 80 thou. So I imagine these people are getting back online this morning, but more people out today.
Did you place a bet there, Mark?
I was going to say over 100,000, so maybe I lost that bet.
Yeah, you might have lost that. Mark's looking for anything to bet on until football season starts. These are desperate times. The dog days of summer, it's tough to bet on baseball. You're itching for football, but you're going to make it, Mark. You got about a month or so to go.
And I don't think I'm going to do preseason.
No.
I've decided I'm waiting till regular season for football. I'm not going to go into the preseason stuff.
You're going to have to scratch that itch, man.
Yeah. I got a new one. I got Travis Kelce in the third round in his next bout. So.
Knockout or TKO? What are you thinking?
So.
There you go. Oh, that's great. That's outstanding. I do want to also say this, just while we're having the conversation. Mike Kelly, Johnson County Commission Chairman. Kansas City Star loves Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly gets them all warm and excited inside. He's and Mike Kelly, we got to get him on the show this Friday. I've got to get Mike Kelly back on. It's been a while. He was supposed to be coming on once a month. I think he missed last month. So Mike Kelly owes us 2 interviews. Damn it. So we'll try to get him on this week. But here was Mike Kelly's commentary to the Kansas City Star about affordable housing in Johnson County. Mike Kelly said, quote, "I think there's always going to be hesitation and caution when you talk about affordable housing. But we'd be remiss, and I think disingenuous, if we didn't address where some of those pre-existing connotations come from. Johnson County, like other communities, has a history of redlining, and we still bear those scars today. We need to not be afraid of addressing that," says Mike Kelly. You know what and this is what too many of these numbskulls don't understand. You know what the greatest thing you can do to drive down the cost of single-family homes is? Create more of it. I'm not a genius, but I know basic economics. If you increase supply, demand will come down and pricing will come down. And instead of figuring out how do we build our newest, fanciest 3 to 4 story multifamily rental unit done by a developer in Georgia, what can we do to encourage single-family home builds around Johnson County, Kansas, wherever? It doesn't much matter. The greatest thing you can do as a city or as a county is encourage developers, however that might be, to build more single family. And by the way, you ask anybody who's looking for a home, especially, the entry level. And I know that entry level homes are expensive now because of labor and supply of materials and things like that. I get it. You can't really build unless you're Habitat for Humanity, you can't really build a $150,000, $200,000 home anymore. But even if you increase the supply of $300,000 to $350,000 homes, even if you jack up the supply of those, it will help the housing market at large. It's just basic common sense. But they don't think like that because that's not enough government involvement for them, right? They want to create this utopia where every town has this perfect mix of people who make this amount of money and that amount of money and this amount of money and that amount of money, and this perfect percentage of white and black and Asian and Latino. They want to create these worlds in their little domains, in their little municipalities that project the world that they want to see. That's what they're interested in doing. That's what they want to do. It's not about how do we as a government do everything we can to stay out of the way, but then push people or push builders to build single family, which is what people want in Johnson County in particular, to try to bring down home prices as much as we can. They don't want to do that, though. 913-408-7710. As we approach 9 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio. Keith and Weatherby. Keith, go ahead. You're on KCMO. What's up?
Hey, just listening to all the conversation and trying to figure out this infrastructure thing. So in the beginning, we were concerned about the traffic flow onto Black Bob from the single access point, and then we went towards whether or not there was busing and sidewalks, and which one is the bigger concern? I've got no dog in the fight, really. Mm-hmm. But I just kind of trying to figure out which one are we really concerned about, the access to Black Bob or the busing. Mm-hmm. And the way I look at it with the busing, hey, if we run a new bus line through there, everybody benefits, not just the people that are in that 14th family unit, mm-hmm. or not unit, but area.
Well, it just depends on how much need there is, Keith. Thanks for the call for busing in that part of town. And I don't have the answer. Maybe Johnson County does. Maybe the city of Olathe does. But like anything else, I mean, public transit, you got to have a demand for it to some extent to justify extending it somewhere. And I don't think anybody would sit there and say the bus system in general across parts of Johnson County is incredibly reliable or all that valuable. For that matter.
The congestion in Olathe in particular is ridiculous, so there's no way a bus could run on time.
Well, that's right. True, too.
Unless you time it with a sundial.
Oh, gosh, what an 8 o'clock hour. This is, and I know that, it was specifically targeted to Prairie Village and Olathe because of where the Star article came from. However, this is very applicable to many parts of our region right now. The Rich Session is not happening. Good morning, 9:05 on a Monday. It's great to be here on KCMO. This headline here, the Rich Session is not happening. The ultra wealthy have never been richer, and they're still spending like crazy. So the story goes on to note that a rich session is a recession that disproportionately impacts the wealthy, and it's not in the cards right now. Experts say, I love that. I love it when they go to experts. Who are the experts? None of you are damn experts anymore. You're all frauds. Anyway. Experts say the richest are actually even richer and spending more than they were before the pandemic. Says here you can thank rising stock prices. This is from MSN and MarketInsider.com. You can thank rising stock prices and YOLO spending culture. John, what's YOLO?
You only live once.
Oh, he got it.
Bam.
Mark, I didn't know if he'd get it, but, I got to give John
I'll
credit.
punctuate that with a holla.
Woo, woo.
There you go.
Nice job. Yeah, okay. I was 50-50 on John getting YOLO, but the YOLO spending culture for the boom in luxury markets. Well, I can tell you how this happened, and any more mainstream media outlet is never going to give you the skinny on this because, well, it's not going to fit their narrative. They're going to just talk about how the rich have gotten richer and the top 1% are holding on to around 30% of the national wealth, according to Fed data. The top 1% hasn't been this wealthy since 1989, they write here in the article. They talk about the price of Taylor Swift tickets. Oh, my good, $2,000 a Taylor Swift oh, what do we do? Okay. So they create this class warfare argument is what they do. Main Street is hurting while the rich have gotten richer. And by the way, I believe that's true. I do. I mean, I was walking through Manhattan last week, and the part of Manhattan I was walking through up and down Fifth Avenue, yes, there were some store fronts that were closed, but, there's a lot of beautiful things on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, and it was busy. People were buying things. They were in the stores. Life was good. This is true. How did we get here? Because the government and the government spending messed up. I can't say the word I really want to say right now. The amount of government spending destroyed the middle class, like it's done for the better part of 60 years. But we put it on steroids. We jacked it up during COVID, and what happened? The bulk of it, I know everyone got their $1,400 stimulus check, but the bulk of it always goes to the top with government spending, and that's what happened here.
Since 1989, they noted.
Yes.
Interesting how many Democratic administrations we've had in the ensuing years,
yeah, that's true.
comparatively speaking.
That's a good point. That's a good point, but don't bring that up. Shh. So instead of building the case, and if they want history to tell the story correctly, building the case on how our COVID policy was such garbage, and yes, our COVID policy did make the rich richer. I do believe that. When you look at the stock market, right? When you look at oftentimes the policies, by the way, even the post-COVID spending, the Inflation Reduction Act, that gives wealthy people rebates on their electric vehicles. That ain't for Main Street. I hate to break it to you.
Talk about a bombshell.
The person struggling to get by that's getting hit by eggs going up 20 cents, they're not interested in the $7,000 rebate for the $53,000 Tesla. These big government policies drive wealth to the top, destroy the wealth in the middle class, and it creates a permanent underbelly, a permanent class that's reliant on the government more so than ever just to get by, and then drives an incredible amount of wealth to the very top. and it creates a group of haves and have-nots and ruins and hollows out the middle class. And that's what we've lived through over the last 3 years. That's it. Instead, what they're pushing and what the push is going to be is we need more government to fix this problem that the government helped create.
Yeah, the government likes to tell you the man is after you, the man is after you. The appropriate response is, you demand.
Yeah, that's right. You demand.
You demand.
That's exactly right. 913-408-7710. The article, and there's a lot of just hot garbage here in the article. But the article goes on to say here, and while the Rolex may be a coveted item amongst a younger set of newly rich spenders, think crypto bros and newly minted Tesla millionaires, the ranks of the ultra-wealthy are likely spending a lot more on the likes of experiences as well. Okay, so now it's like, well, what's wrong with any of that? Should you not be able to enjoy an experiential item versus, say, a Rolex watch? Is one better than the other? I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in how a larger percentage of people can enjoy whatever it is, whether it's an experiential expense or a physical expense, whether it's a Rolex watch or a vacation. I want more people to experience that without any government help, through simply hard work and living the American dream and picking yourself up and doing those things. That's what I'm interested in trying to achieve. I've never thought to myself, gosh, somebody else just went on a nicer vacation than me. Who cares? I just want to figure out how I can one day go on a nicer vacation. That's really all I'm interested in.
Exactly.
It's all I care about. Mike's in Kansas City. What's up, Mike? You're on KCMO. Good morning.
It's the white, woke, wealthy elite. 75% of them tend to vote for Democrats, and about 80% of the Democrat campaign funds comes from that group. And this explains exactly what's happening. And what we're heading for is a feudal state where you have a wealthy elite. Most of the people are peasants depending upon the government or the king or whoever, and you have a very small middle class, just like the world experienced for like the last 1,500 years before the Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
We're returning to a normality of humanity, if you want to call it that, where we're all going to be dependent upon the king, the commissar, whoever, and you'll have a bunch of wealthy elite and with their knights and their palaces and stuff, and then a small number of middle class, tradesmen and things like that. But, this is basic human, patterns.
Yeah.
But, that's what the American Revolution was fought to stop, and we're forgetting it.
Yeah. No, you're right. You are right about that. There's been no experiment in the history of mankind that has created the type of middle class that we have experienced for the most part in this country. And for the last 50 to 60 years, it has dwindled. But it's really dwindled exponentially over the last 10 to 15. And what you have seen over that period of time is enormous levels of government spending under both administrations, by the way, Republicans and Democrats. And the more they do it, the worse it seems to get for the middle class, despite whatever promises they have. Now, you have to say this, and this is a data point I've mentioned many times on this show. The lowest end of the income bracket was seeing the highest percentage increase in their income pre-COVID under Donald Trump. Those economic policies were working. Let me repeat that. The lowest end of the income bracket was seeing the highest percentage increase in their income leading up and right before COVID. And then COVID destroyed a lot of that. And what else did COVID do, by the way, that we seem to forget is those people who are already struggling, who are behind the eight ball, lower socioeconomic levels, their schools get shut down. They don't have parents at home who can make sure kids are doing their homework and learning. Whereas in more suburban areas, higher income areas, you had a parent who was either working from home, could stay home, who could help the kids. That continues to grow the future wealth gap in this country. It did everything. The policy from the schooling to the economic side has done so much to further divide us economically in this country. And by the way, to tie this all back to next year and what's to come, Ron DeSantis, who's done a horrible job on the campaign trail, if he doesn't tap into this and knock off, as much as I agree with him on the culture war stuff, if he doesn't get his act together and start talking about this, I mean, he's toast, and he may already be toast, but he should be talking about this and the success he had in Florida. Much more than the culture war stuff, which I agree with, but it's not working for him. 913-408-7710 on KCMO. Derek, Kansas City. What's up, Derek?
Hey, what's up? So I was just listening to the last guy talk about how he felt like the country was heading towards a feudal state where you have to ask the government for permission to do anything. You're relying on the government. But how does he draw a distinction between that and his relationship to his employer, where if you are disgruntled by your employer, you can't go anywhere because your health insurance is tied to them? You obviously can't leave your job and just quit having health insurance. I'm just wondering why no one, they're worried about relying on the government. You already rely on your employer, so why aren't you more worried about having a more democratic relationship in your actual job setting?
I'm not sure it's apples to apples, but I mean, you can get another job that provides health insurance, right? If you need to.
No, you lose your health insurance if you go and get another job and you have to wait a year to get health insurance. It's not as simple as what you're making it seem like.
No, it is. No, that's not true.
No, it's not. I have a job. Some jobs will give you new health insurance. Otherwise, you have to go on COBRA. Most companies, I work at UPS, which is one of the largest employers in America, they will not give you health insurance unless you have worked there for over a year. Okay. And the reason a big company like that is comfortable paying your health insurance when that's a big expense for them is because they know that they can treat you however they want because you can't get another job somewhere else because you have to have your health insurance.
Okay, well, that's your experience. I've switched jobs and I got experience. It's everybody's. Okay, got it. Thank you. It's everybody's experience. No, I've gotten jobs, and I could line up calls for the next hour of people who switched jobs and got health insurance. I know yours is that you didn't, and that sucks. But the idea that that's everybody's experience is simply not true. It's just not. And yes, you can buy your own health insurance. Ask any small business owner, entrepreneur in this audience, of which there's many right now. They get their own insurance. They're able to fund their own insurance. And, the cost, by the way, the cost of health insurance in general has also gone up astronomically since Obamacare was passed because the government got more involved in that space.